Bezrat Hashem, we're continuing our class today. First of all, we're going to dedicate the learning for the IDF soldiers, for all the hostages. We hear a lot of good news about them starting to come closer to being released, hopefully. So hopefully we hear this news and get them out and back to us. We're also going to strengthen Idan ben Chaim, Eyal ben David, Yaakov ben Yosef, and Dina bat Yaakov. May their neshama have an aliyah, and may we just see revealed miracles, and hopefully we can get to see. Today is going to be an interesting story, an interesting class, and we're going to have a lot of different topics that we're covering. So I would ask you to bear with me, to lock in, because we're going spiritual, we're going deep, and we're trying to get to understand some new prayers, and we're trying to understand also the depths of what we do, how we do, and why we do things. So hopefully we get to learn a few new things today, Bezrat Hashem. So let's start. So we're starting today. I want to start with each day to start with a certain portion of our prayer that we can go ahead and try to dig a bit deeper into. So I wanted to start today with something that we say every single day since October 7th. And this is called the prayer of Shir Lamalot. And before I say the actual prayer and we explain it a bit more, I want to speak about some context about why it's so important. So, welcome. No, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, so we just started. So we're starting today with basically, we want to give a portion of our prayer and try to understand why we read it. So the first one we're going to touch upon is called Shir Lamalot. Is the prayer that we sing is a mizmor from King David that used to go ahead and pray to Hashem in a place of struggle, in a place of sorrow, and we say it every single day after our Tefillah. So we finish our Tefillah and we have these pink papers that are laminated, and we read them every single day in the merit of the idea of soldiers to be released and to be successful, in the merit of the hostages to come back home, and we read it every day. But how much do we actually know about it? So I had a chance to meet, and Ilar, a friend, he also had a chance to meet, I believe, a friend named Ro'i Shalev. And Ro'i Shalev was a Nova survivor. And Ro'i basically went in, and he was in the Nova Festival, and he was there with his girlfriend, and he was there with his one of his best friends. And at some point they started running, and they started hiding there, and they got to be hiding under a truck. Him and his girlfriend under one truck, and his best friend under a different truck. And they were laying there and trying to make sure that the terrorists are not finding them or not catching them. And as they were trying to hide, the Hamas terrorists came in. They took one of their guns. They shot one bullet. Some people here heard this story before. And down to the truck, to the bottom of the truck. And they hit one bullet in the heart of his girlfriend. They hit him in the back, and they hit his other friend also, I believe, in the heart, or in a place that she got murdered on the spot. And he was there, and he was seeing this whole scenario happening, and he tried to go ahead and disguise himself as if he's dead. So he took some of it. What is it? He was not hit. He was hit in the back. So he had a bullet in his back, and he tried to take blood from his girlfriend, unfortunately, and cover himself, as if it seems like he's dead. And then they left. So he's lying there. Think about it, in the middle of the fields, and he's lying there and trying to just act dead, and so hope that no one kills him, and hope that the IDF comes and saves him. And then after a few, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a second round of terrorists came in. And they walked in, they saw some blood on the floor, and they realized there might be someone there, and they shot another bullet. 1, 2, 3. They shot him a second bullet in the back. They still didn't kill him. And then they started barricading, not barricading, just taking it as a meeting spot for the terrorists. And as they're sitting there, he tried to look and see if there's someone there, if he can crawl out, if it's safe to look around. And as he's turning his head, he sees a terrorist sitting with his gun in between his legs, smoking a cigarette, looking dead at him. And he's saying to himself, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive this? So he said he was in a place that was really desperate. Now, talking about someone who just celebrated a music festival on a Shabbat, on a holiday. And he comes in and starts to say two things. He started to say Shema Israel, and every time he would say Shema Israel, he would move his head a bit, and he would start singing Shir Lamalot. Shir Lamalot, Sa'ana el ha'arim ma'an yavo Israel. And he would go ahead and move his head slightly, up to a point that he looked away to the other side again. Baruch Hashem, After a while, the terrorists left, and then the IDF soldiers came in. He had to scream at them to come. They found him. They threw like some snacks and like a first aid kit to him, and they told him we'll come back when things are a bit more calm. He waited there for a few more hours, and they ended up saving him. Baruch Hashem, this guy went for an amazing recovery, and he's one of the most inspiring stories I have ever heard. And we see this repeated tefillah of Shir LaMa'alot. Again and again, Shir LaMa'alot, Asayna Elarim, Asayna Elarim. So, first of all, I want to try to understand what it means. What is Shir LaMa'alot, Asayna Elarim, Ma'an Yavo Izri? So the basic translation is Shir LaMa'alot, a song to the what? It's sing of the songs. So it comes in and basically tells us, Asayna Elarim, I would carry my eyes up to the mountains, Ma'an Yavo Izri. Where would my support, where would my help come from? Ezri me'im Hashem, my help would come from Hashem, from God. Oseh shamayim va'aretz, the one who created the heavens and the earth. And when we spoke about it last time, we spoke about the unity of God, how He controls everything out of everything. And it's really to understand what is the context. Who am I talking to right now? Then He comes in and says, Ezri me'im Hashem, Oseh shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamut raglecha, don't let your legs stumble, al yanum shomrecha, your guardian would never fall and never tremble. Here he would not rest and would not sleep, the guardian of Israel. Adonai Shomrecha, God is your protector. Adonai Tzilcha, God is your shadow. Al Yad Yaminecha, on your right hand. Right hand is a representative of chesed, of mercy. Yomam Hashemesh lo yakecha, during the day, it would not. It would go ahead and be like the sunshine that goes ahead and shows you the way. V'yarach balayla, and also at the darkest time, it will still light upon your way. Adonai yishmocha mikol ra, God will protect you from every evil. Yishmor et nafshecha, will keep your soul. Adonai yishmor tzedcha u'berecha, God will protect your entrance and your arrival, you leaving and you coming back. Me'ata v'ad olam, from now until forever and ever. So that's the direct translation. We understand, okay, God is with me, God is protecting me, and I keep repeating it to myself almost like a mantra. But then we try to look deeper, and we try to open up and see what the Arizal says about it. So the Arizal comes in and says, Shir LaMa'alot, he says, in the letter of Lamed, La Ma'alot. So what is Ma'alot? Ma'alot is virtues, or comes in and he represents it here, or explains it here as traits. Mm-hmm. And he says, Lamed Ma'alot. Oh, he did?
Shir about milas. You have to have a song about your milas, singing the good things about you, your own milas.
It's true. Yeah. Like the values. What do you have? What do you have to sell? What is inside of your your backpack? What is inside your? There's the kids in Eula, they call it inventory, right? Like in video games, inventory. So what is in your inventory? What are the traits, what are the values that you have as a person? So he says, Lamed Ma'alot. A person has 30 different traits that one need to work on throughout his lifetime. And he comes in and tells us that in Masechet Avot. And he says, continuing and says, I'll look up to the mountains. He says, what are these mountains? The mountains are Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. The mountains are our forefathers. And they're the ones who paved the path of how we should behave, how we should emulate. First with what? With our traits. If it's Avraham Avinu with chesed, if it's Avraham Avinu with the hospitality, if it's Yaakov by going ahead and being dedicated to his kids and going ahead and the power of prayer that he had, and if it's Yitzchak that was Ishu Alim, that would sit and learn and study and vekut in Hashem, and you hear all these amazing stories and all this telenovela that you pretty much seen throughout Bereshit. You see all these relationships go back and forth, and this. So it just shows you how our forefathers, like the matriarchs, are so great because their traits were unique. And then he comes in and continues, Me'ayin yavo ezri. So he comes in and tells us a very big secret that's called Me'ayin. When I go ahead and I get into an existence level of Ayin, what is Ayin or En? There is none. There's nothing. Me'ayin yavo ezri. From a place that I go down to a place that I am ayin. What is ayin? Is I'm nothing. When I acknowledge that I'm nothing, when I'm acknowledging that I'm on the bottom floor, when I'm acknowledging that I'm in this situation that the terrorists are in front of me and I have no savior but God, from there your salvation will come. So it comes in and tells us we need to understand when we pray, when we say these words, that I'm in existence and I'm in the reality of Ayin. That yes, so that's like the simplistic translation that the English does for us. Unfortunately, a lot of times they miss out on a lot of like the different layers of understanding. So in the Torah we have something called pardes, which is like a vineyard in English, but we have 4 layers of understanding in everything that we read. The first one is pshat, simple level. Remez is the hinted level. Then we have drash, which is maybe, the drasha that we hear from Rabbi Horowitz, or the drasha that we hear from many rabbis, about what we can interpret as a story, as a message for life. And then we have the sod, the secret. So now we're touching a bit of the secret. We're trying to understand what is that means, ayin. And ayin, Hasidus speaks about it all around, about the idea of we are nothing. We are something that is only existing, purely existing, because Hashem is now creating, putting a soul into us and going ahead and reviving us every single day. And we talk about it when we get to Netilat Yadayim, what it means for us to go to sleep, what it means for us to wake up, and the impurity that we have to wash off, and how important it is, and we see it in the Shulchan Aruch, we'll get to it. But he comes in and tells us that once we get to this reality, then that's where all the salvations comes. And if you think about it, how many times I saw it in my life on a personal level, and I think a lot of us see it. When we get to a place that we can say, I cannot do it anymore, I'm done, I'm lost, Hashem, I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the path. Some moments in life happen that you say to yourself, I cannot do it anymore. And when that moment comes, usually that's where you see the flip of the coin. That's where you see now, you see all these movies, right? When someone goes ahead and falls and he goes on the floor and he says, I cannot do it anymore. Then he raises up his head and says, here's the solution. So these movies are being taken from our world, from the Torah, from the stories we see. So when we understand that, that's when we take this prayer and we actually give it life. And then he finishes off and he says, where is the wisdom coming from? Where is the mercy coming from? From that location. And from there, all the blessings can come and pour in, because I'm basically emptying out my vessel. When I'm emptying out my cup, I'm basically telling Hashem, here, please fill it up. I'm here. I'm on the low. I need a refill. If you're not refilling me, I'm dying out of thirst. And then he goes ahead and he basically fills it up.
How does it yesh me'ayin?
Yesh me'ayin is yesh. What is yesh me'ayin? There is from a place there isn't. So, but I need to first connect to the place that there isn't, because otherwise if I keep putting myself at a place that I have. If you now go to someone and you tell him, hey, listen, I have a lot of money in my bank, but can you please give me more? He might say yes, he might say no, it depends on the but if you come and tell him, listen, I don't have nothing, can you please give me something? More likely than the other one, you're going to get money. You're going to get what you're asking for. And that's really what we're trying to channel in Shir Malon. So today we really want to touch about, so today we're going to talk a bit about Kabbalah concepts, a bit about Likutei Moharan, something that will try to explain to us what is the whole idea about being Jewish, and what is the whole idea about us refining ourselves, and how does it channel into prayer eventually. So if we look at it and we look at life, we're all addicted to something. One person will be addicted to money. One person will be addicted to alcohol. One person will be addicted to women. One person will be addicted to learning Torah. One person will be addicted to family. Each one has something that they're addicted to. And then we're looking at it and we're saying, why do we have addictions? And if we look at the root of everything, at the end of the day, we're all addicted to something that's all of these include, and it's happiness. One person would think he's happy from this, one person would think he's happy because of that, or because of that. We're all addicted to happiness, whichever way you flip it. If you give me an example, I'll tell you how it's a selfish example, and you eventually go ahead and exude the happiness from. I give to my grandchildren because I love them. It's not because I'm addicted to something. But okay, when you love them, does it give you any type of a good feeling? Does it give you any type of satisfaction? That's your happiness. When you go to work, I just make money because my family has it. But when your family has the money and they eat the food and they at dinner, does it make you happy? Yes. You constantly come back to the idea of when you go and look in things in life, everything that we do, from the moment we wake up and the moment we go to sleep, is from our personal enjoyment and personal happiness at the root of it. So the Torah and the Gemara comes in and explains to us, and we see it. We saw it just in Chanukah, we see it in the Torah, or Achaim, all these books. They keep using the word light. What is this whole word light that we keep using and saying again and again and again? So fine, okay, there's lamps here, but there's also trees, there's also sun, there's also a sea. Why is light so much into our life? Why do we keep seeing that word coming and repeating? Because the Torah is resembling happiness to light. And the more we can go ahead and draw light to our lives, the better our lives will be. The happier we are, the happier our lifestyle will be, the happier our family will be, our surrounding, our kehillah, and that's what we're trying to do. So if I'm addicted to light, then I need to understand how am I drawing this light to my life. And he comes in, and Likutei Moharan comes in and gives us it sounds simple, but it's a lot of work. It's something that people spend their whole life doing. But he gives us a concept that's called Amuda de Emtsaita, which we introduced a bit in the Duties of the Heart. Amuda de Emtsaita, which is the middle pillar. So if we look at it in Kabbalah, there's something that's called Sfirot, Aseret HaSfirot. There's 10 counts that each neshama is built from. So we have Chokhmah, Binah, Dat. We have Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. And we go, and each one of them represents something. So the Chesed is representing the right hand, and the Gvura represents the left hand. Chokhmah goes ahead and represents the connection to my brain and to my soul, and basically to my neshama, to the upper worlds. And then Bina is the dissection of the information back and forth. And then that is when I acquire the knowledge. And on and on and on. And he says that the Amuda Emtsaita includes the middle counts. So if we have 3 counts, and this is where you need to really be focused, because it's not so easy to explain also. But there's 3 counts that appear on the middle pillar. So that middle pillar includes Chokhmah, Dat, it includes Tiferet, and it includes Yesod. These are 3 Sfirot that if we're able to go ahead and lift them up, if we're able to go and refine them and fix them, everything in our life is gonna change for the positive. And Tiferet is it's like glory. It's glory. Glory.
And
So
what was the third one?
Yesod, it's like the foundation. So that is a deep understanding of concepts. It's me not believing in God, but knowing that God exists because I saw Him in my lifetime. I saw Him in this experience and that experience. I feel that God is a part of me. I don't just say, I believe that there's a God.
From the heart, not from the mind.
It's from the heart. It's more from the heart. It's like when I know, if I'll go now to a basketball court, and they'll tell me, do you think you can play basketball? I wouldn't tell you, yeah, I believe I can play. I know I can play. Because I've proven over and over again that I can play, and I showed it, and I have the skills to do it, so I know how to play. I don't think I can play. And it's the same with belief. I don't believe God exists. I know that God is a part of my life. So we're going to start actually, and we touched upon it before. I'll try to actually dive into it, but we're going to start actually with the bottom, with the Yesod. And the Yesod comes in and represents to us, what is it usually representing? Our desires. So what desires we have: to reproduce, to eat, to sleep, to be lazy. These are to provide some sort of survival, protection, security for our family. These are all our basic desires. These are all the things. If you have the Maslow chart of pyramid of hierarchy of needs, so you have the basic ones is survival. So these are these ones, and we go ahead and we see it in us looking at places we shouldn't be looking, and us eating too much food, or us going ahead and doing inappropriate acts, or us going ahead and falling into any desire that a person has. So he says that this is where the desires linger, and the first thing we have to do as human beings is we start from the ground up, right? From the existence of Ein. That means I'm starting from the ground level. Like I build a building, I have to start with the first floor and then go on to the second, third, and fourth. So the correction to it is something that's called hitapkut. What is hitapkut? Is to hold myself and to refrain from something, or to delay the satisfaction. So let's say I want to eat this nice chocolate cake that I have in front of me. No problem. Eat it. Wait 5 minutes, put it aside, come back to it after 5 minutes and eat it. I share this story because it's funny, and it's something that I feel like it's a classic. But when I've been to the Biala Rebbe's dish or a Shabbat meal, he comes in and he pets the fish. He sits there and pets a fish. like a whole fish. He goes ahead and pets it for 10 minutes and talks about how fish are amazing and how it saves us and how it's important to eat it on Shabbat and on and on and on. And gives a story, gives us a drasha, and he wouldn't eat. And only after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, then he will go ahead and touch the food. And he comes to show you how a person can really self-discipline himself. And it comes into everything. I want to get stronger, I need to suffer. I need to go ahead and delay my satisfaction, so to speak. I want to go ahead and keep a good lifestyle and be healthier, so I wouldn't eat that ice cream at 10 p.m. after I finish my day. Or I wouldn't eat that extra piece of meat on Shabbat, even though I know I shouldn't, and my wife is going to give me, going to slap me on my head for eating that extra, and my cholesterol levels and this and that. So I'm putting a refrain to myself. I'm putting like a barrier to say, I'm not going to do it right now, I'm going to do it later.
The term is delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, beautiful. And then we spoke about the classic example of kids, where they have the marshmallow test. You know the marshmallow test? So they put one marshmallow in front of kids, and they tell them, don't eat it for 15 minutes. If you don't eat it, you're going to get 2. And then you see which ones eat and which ones don't, and you see it correlates directly to success in life. Successful people know how to delay their gratification, delay satisfaction. So he says that's the first bottom level. Then he comes in and gets to Tiferet. Tiferet is what? Tiferet is basically the glory, and usually it's being represented in our pride and in our speech. Where does our speech say? I think we spoke about it last time also a bit. Where do you usually see when a person is proud or is prideful or arrogant? By what he brings out of his mouth. You wouldn't see it. A person can drive fancy cars. You go ahead and live maybe somewhat of a lavish lifestyle with a big house with everything that he needs. But if you start speaking and you start hearing from him, oh, I have this, I have that, that's when you usually dislike him. That's when you usually take a step back and say, okay, this guy is arrogant. So he comes in and tells us that what is the fix for it? First of all, be able to speak less and go ahead and refrain from speaking too much. Because as we say, there's 10 counts of speaking that was dropped to the world. How many of them women received? 9, and men received 1. That means we should speak much, much less than women to begin with. But in general, if we see how God created us, how many ears do we have? We have 2 ears. How many mouths do we have? So we need to speak half as what we listen to, or we need to listen twice as we speak. So if we understand that basic concept of us living in this world and being created in this way that we were created, that's already a beginning to it. And once we speak, what do we need to say? Once we do speak, we say gratitude and we say prayer. So we say Tefillah. That's the whole concept of us praying and understanding what we pray, and then going ahead and taking it and bringing something that could be arrogant, that could be very negative, and bringing it to the place of the corrected path that we should be in. And then comes in the third one, and I believe this is the hardest, because a lot of people can go ahead and, at some point in life, delay their satisfaction. They can go ahead and speak less. I think men, in general, they tend to, at some point in life, speak less. They tend to be a bit more quiet, to go and isolate themselves a bit more sometimes. But the hardest thing is our thoughts. And he comes in and says that the issue there is something that's called Yetzer HaMedame. What is Yetzer HaMedame? It's the evil inclination, comes in and basically takes all the Looney Tune movies and cartoons and all the Lord of the Rings movies and all the CSI, whatever you like, puts it in our brain, mishmashes it, gets it into a washing machine and pours it into our brain. So one day we think we're on top of the world. One day we'll think my life is horrible. One day we'll think that I should do this. One day I need to be a sailor. One day I need to be a firefighter. One day I need to be... And we keep changing our direction in our brain more than... Reality stays the same. But our mind goes to so many different places. And what we need to understand is that's the power that's called Koach HaMedame. And that's a very strong force. That's a force that can take years for a person to acknowledge it. And the whole concept of what is Hasidim? We're supposed to take the concept of our thoughts that usually drags us down to the things that are more depressed and sadness and being hard on yourself and on and on and on, all these negative feelings that we can bring to our consciousness. And we need to transform them into happiness. On a daily basis. Happiness. Oh, you feel sad? Happiness. Oh, you feel sad? Happiness. And when we go ahead and we fix it, we take a condition that's called ishtabsha alav da'ato. When we say about someone that he became crazy or that he lost his mind, we say he lost his mind. And we need to find our mind. We need to be able to keep our mind in check. And that's one of the hardest to do, but that's really where we come and bring everything to the center pillar. And when we bring it to the center pillar, then we can go ahead and start really paying attention to what we think about. And we do it by the bodedut. He says that's one of the most powerful tools. And you don't have to go to up in the trees. So this one is Likutei Moharan. This is Rabbi Nachman. So it comes in and says, it doesn't have to be necessarily that I go now to the mountains and I pray and I shout. And it can be in my office. It could be in a quiet room in my house. It could be in my car. I take 5-10 minutes and I recalibrate my thoughts. And I do it maybe once a day and then twice a day. Depends on how much you think or you recognize that your head is not there, that you're losing it.
That's Bina.
Bina is taking the information and dissecting it from one side to the other. He's going with an idea and trying to find this opinion, that opinion, going back and forth. This is a different conversation, different time.
What are we talking about now?
Now it's the das. So that's our mind, and we're trying to always control our mind and keep our mind in check. Don't let ourselves lose our mind, because if we lose our mind, then what is different between us and a cuckoo guy at the cuckoo house, right? What's different?
What do you mean by losing your mind?
Losing my mind means I'm constantly going into the imagination. I'm constantly going into today I feel like this, tomorrow I feel like that. Today I'm depressed. And tomorrow I'm happy, and we constantly let it swivel too much. Our goal is to try to keep ourselves some sort of like a level-headed environment and level-headed level of existence. So we need to constantly be there on a daily basis, as much as possible. And that, he says that this is the hardest. That's why we go from the ground up. Every single one of them, I think, to me, sounds really, really difficult. And that comes into the 30 traits that we spoke before about in Shir Ma'alot, that we have to go ahead and we have to explore and slowly build up. So he comes in and tells us this is really the highest level that we have to get to. Now,
So the remedy to make that happen
yes,
is to keep ourselves focused, the mind cleared, emptied, or not distracted. The remedy for that?
the remedy for that is we're trying to create these empty spaces so that we can go ahead and for a second recalibrate ourselves. Think about it like, for example, in a basketball game. You're going in the game and you have pressure and you have fans shouting and you have this guy pass me the ball and you need to shoot and you made a mistake or you play poker. You're going in the middle of the competition. Oh, I lost a hand and now I need to go ahead. Do I check in? Do I check out? Do I fold? Do I raise? Do I buy in? Do I go all in? And your mind starts to kind of like get out of order. So what do people do? Time out. They go to their coach, they recalibrate, they come back onto the court, and now they continue to play. In poker, you go ahead, you'll take 5 minutes away, you'll rest, you'll drink something, you'll rethink, you'll understand, okay, here's what I need to do, and now go back to the play. And in essence, the same way we do it in sports, we should be doing it in life. If I feel like my head is losing it, or I'm too much in my head, or I'm too much thoughts, too many drifting, stop, go, relax for a second, recalibrate yourself, and then come back to the play. And it's a skill that a person needs to develop. And if we don't develop it, a lot of times we make mistakes, or we mess up on places we don't want to mess up. I don't want to be losing my temper and be angry with my wife, even though she's cooked a nice meal for me. And then because she put this herb and this spice, and I was upset because of work, and I was upset because my kid did this and that, then I'm not going to react the same way I should be. So we're creating these spaces and these windows for ourselves to be able to react properly, to be able to constantly separate and connect again, separate and connect again. And that's the concept that we speak about. Once we do that, we get to the Amud Tzeita. And what is the evil inclination going to do? It's going to use the right side and the left side to try to pull us to one place or the other. So the right side comes in and represents mercy, right? Chesed. What is mercy? It basically represents too much of something. Too much food, too much movies, too much TV, too much complaining. Mercy. Mercy comes in and represents extra, more. I give you more than that you should be receiving. I give you more than what the judgment would come in and say. Let's say your tab should be, now I did the Yom Kippur prayers and I did the Rosh Hashanah prayers, and I pray to Hashem, and according to my tab, according to the pluses and minuses, to my sins and my mitzvah this year, I need to get, let's say, $100,000. But God comes in with mercy and says, no, I'm going to give you 110. So that's the mercy. It's a bit more than what you should be receiving. Judgment comes in and tries to give you less than what you receive. And the evil inclination takes it and basically is trying to go ahead and steer us from too much food, too much TV, too much this, too much that, or judgment, which is too little. Too little appreciation to myself, too little time with my family and with my kids, which I'd like to have more of, and on and on and on. So he plays this game with us, and our goal is to keep pushing this away and stay in the center. When it comes in and tells us, there's Masechet Avot comes in, and Pirkei Avot speaks about it. But a person who, I want to quote it for you, I actually wrote it here. Let's see. Here, Rav Yudin says, in the name of Rabbi Ibu, En Adam Yotze Min HaOlam V'Chatzi Ta'avato B'Yado. A person does not leave this world with half of his satisfaction or half of his desire in his hand. Meaning, it doesn't matter how much we're going to get, how much we're not going to get. We're not going to live with any of that anyway. What we're going to live with is the development of our traits and development of our ma'alot, of what we spoke about in Shir LaMa'alot. So if we understand that, then he comes in and continues and says, Yesh lo me'ah rotze 200, yesh lo 200 rotze 400. A person is would always be interested in more than he has. If you have now $100 in your pocket, oh, I wish I would have 200. If you have 200 now in your pocket, you would say, oh, I wish I would have 400. The more a person has, the more a person is trying to satisfy the desires. And the being greedy and being the interest in money is also one desire that a person has. So I'm going to go ahead, and the more I get, the more I feed that desire, the more it's going to grow. So if today I just want a piece of candy. Tomorrow I want a whole cake. And the next day, let me have a whole feast in front of me. And before we notice it, you see about a person who gains weight. In the beginning, it starts with 1 dessert, 2 desserts, and then slowly a person can go ahead and eat for a whole pint or 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Right? So that's the concept for us. Now, once we understand this concept, I want us to go ahead and look at what the Chafetz Chaim has to come in and say about what is a person being created. It's going to connect the idea of where we're coming from, the basic ground level, and about how it connects to our speech, and then we're going to move on to the prayer of Netilat Yadayim. So it comes in and says to us, so. He says a person was created from the earth. Every humanly body can go ahead and be shrinked to a pile of dirt and minerals that are rooted in the ground. And therefore this essence, this piece of minerals and piece of gravel received a very, very special goal and special mission in this world, to be a vessel to the soul. To the same part that is coming from God, the same godly portion that we have inside of each one of us. And this divine spark, that God has created and planted in each human being. And then he comes in and tells us, the mouth is where the essence of the spirituality meets with the physicality. So if you think about it, our body is compiled by pretty much 99% physicality. The 1% is the spirituality that comes in and connects us to God. Otherwise, we're just a piece of meat and flesh. So he comes in and tells us, he is the person who goes ahead and uses his tongue and uses his speech in order to go ahead and put in the kedusha of the divine into the words that he's speaking. And this power, this is the connection, this is the bridge that combines between the spiritual and the physical. And this is allowing a person to go ahead and activate the spirituality we have in us. So this is the Chafetz Chaim. I'm sure some of you have read it before. And he comes in and finishes off this portion. Once a person chooses to use his speech inappropriately, therefore he goes ahead and selects not just between lashon hara or bad speech and good speech, and self-control, but also between a choice of what do you want to connect. Do you want to connect to physicality, or do you want to connect to spirituality? When a person speaks lashon hara, when a person speaks poorly and brings bad words out of his mouth, he's basically saying, I'm choosing this, and I'm choosing this floor, rather than God Almighty that created me and going and moving this whole world. So if we understand this foundation, if we understand these pieces, then we have a wonderful background or wonderful base to go ahead and start building up on what we actually do on a daily basis. So we're going to go and finish off our class today with the idea of Netilat Yadayim. So we wake up in the morning, we said Modeh Ani last time, we come in with gratitude, we come in and say thank you in the morning. Then we come into the idea of Netilat Yadayim. And with Netilat Yadayim, I'm actually going to start with the Likutei Halachot and not with the Mishnah. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what he says here about what do we do when we sleep and how do we restore it back. So he says, when we go ahead and we wash our hands, we use what? Aside from the vessel, we use water. And he says that the water are the ones that going and continue in ממשיכים מימי הדת מסוף העולם מבחינת עלמא דעתי שתמלא הארץ דעה. When we go and we use this water almost as if we're taking them from the upper worlds, from the world to come, and we use them in order to go ahead and fill this world with something that's called da'at, because water is resembling to da'at in the Torah in many, many occasions. The Zohar continuously uses water as basically something that cleanses us, that lifts us and elevates us. And he says it's ze b'chinat mikveh, she b'chinat alma da'ati. When we go ahead and we use this water, it's almost like we used a mikveh on our hands. And our hands specifically, what do we do with our hands? We usually go ahead and we do most of our actions, right? We eat. We go ahead and we when we go to the restroom, we use our hands. When we try to go ahead and clean ourselves, we use our hands. When a lot of these actions come in with our hands. And the hands, usually when we go ahead and we say the birka of the motzi on Shabbat, right, on Friday night, when we go ahead and we cut the bread, we say potach et yedecha. We're mostly on the Sephardi custom, but the idea is we open our hands. I think this ran out. Okay, but we basically are opening our hands, and we say potach et yadecha umasbir lekoach haratzon. God is going ahead and using our hands to basically, we're doing this. This action is what we do, and we're asking for God, fill our hands with blessings. So when we say fill our hands with blessings, we're basically using the hands. And if our hands are improper, or our vessel is not clean, or our vessel is not empty to receive the merits and to receive all the goodness that God is trying to give us, all the light that's trying to come to our life, then we cannot receive it. So he comes in and tells us that's why we need to make sure that we release the impurities, and we release all we went in and went to sleep, right? So when we sleep during what time of the day? During the nighttime. Nighttime represents the dark moment in our life, the places that things doesn't work our way, the places that there's a lack of light. And remember what we said, what are we? Addicted to light. So if we're addicted to light and we're going now and we get into a place that lacks light, then we're going to a very, so to speak, and figuratively and physically to a dark place. So when we come back from that dark place, we go to a place that is 1/60th of death, 1/60th of impurity. We wake up in the morning, we want to correct that. We want to say, I am choosing now to go back to the light in a sense. So I'm washing my hands 3 times on each side, and I'm cleaning my hands so that they can go ahead and again receive all the blessings in my life.
And we're speaking thoughts that are ascending.
And then with that we're starting basically the preparation, because with our hands we're going to now go ahead and put the tzitzit. With our hands we're now going to wrap the tefillin. With our hands we're going to hold things and say blessings on them, and they're going to be the main tool for us to use in order to create things in this world. We're going to use our mouth to create them, but our hands is the actual physical component that comes in and helps us and assists us. And we say, Esai yadayim, nesiat kapayim, right? When we say the bracha of the priest blessing, right? So the priest used to go ahead and put their hands like this, right, and combine these two, and basically go ahead and bless all the Jews that would come to the Bet HaMikdash. So why do they use their hands and do nesiat kapayim? Why do they use their hands to go ahead and bring the sacrifice and bring the korban? Because our hands represents the best vessel we can have to receive those blessings. Then we come in and we finish with the idea of it says to us here in the Halachot Netilat Yadayim, he gives us a few things that we just understand how much he puts attention to it. ידקדק להראות עליהם מים, 3 פעמים להעביר רוח רעה ששורה עליהם. The Shulchan Aruch, it's not Kabbalah now, it's halacha, basic proper. It says we should go ahead and make sure that we wash 3 times on each side in order to go ahead and remove the evil spirit that lies upon it. And then he comes in and he says, לא ייגע בידו קודם נטילה לפה, ולא לחותם ולא לאוזניים ולא לעיניים. You cannot touch your mouth, you cannot touch your nose, you cannot touch your ears, you cannot touch your eyes. Because if you touch your eyes now when you're impure or when you're tameh, you can go ahead and you can take that darkness, so to speak, or that impurity, and you can pass it into the inside of your body. And you don't want to do that. Right now, it stays only on our tippy toes. When we wake up, we take that 1/60th of death when a person goes and touches a dead person, when he goes to a cemetery. Then we become impure, right? There's a tumah that comes in from first vessel, second vessel. There's rules to it, on and on and on. I don't think it's the time to go into it, but when we go ahead and we touch someone, then we have to go ahead and purify ourselves. We go where? Where does one would go if he wants to go and purify himself? To the mikveh. Back in the days, what did they do in order to go ahead and purify? They would use the red heifer. They would use the red cow. And they mixed their ashes in the water, and they would go ahead and make what was pure impure and what was impure pure, and somehow it would make everyone pure. How does it work? That we'll know only when Mashiach comes. But that is basically some of the ideas that we wanted to deliver today. So how important it is to go ahead and understand the power of tefillah. How important it is to understand where we're trying to be as human beings. How important it is to understand the power we have in our mouth, in our speech. And then from there, we can use that shir lama'alot, we can use the blessing that we see on a daily basis and really elevate them. And I'll finish with a story that some of you may have heard, but I think it's a very powerful one to finish. We had 2 guys here that came to our shul. If you remember, Daniel and Eliyahu Sharabi, the Yemen brothers. Do you remember them? They were here. We had 2 Yemen brothers that came into shul, and they basically shared a story about also they were Nova survivors. And they did something heroic. They went in and barricaded themselves with 60 people behind a tank. And they went in and they basically fought there, I think, for between 6 to 8 hours, if I'm not mistaken. And they were fighting there, and they went into a tank that had burned soldiers inside of it. They picked up the gun, also a miracle story by itself, and they found the gun and started fighting. And as they fight, they got to a point that they look to the right, they see a Duvdevan soldier dead on one side. And they look to the left side, and they see a Tzanchanim soldier. And they see, that one they didn't tell you here, but they saw police officers, unfortunately. They saw police officers hiding underneath them when they're fighting. And you're talking about 2 kids who were probably very, very high with all sorts of drugs, now going ahead and battling for their lives and the lives of 60 other people underneath them. Just understand that scenario and that situation. And they go ahead and basically, they're now battling and they've seen it. They had a few police officers that did fight with them, and they had some other guys that picked up and just said, I'm going to fight. And they had RPGs thrown in them. And I have like videos here if you want to show you after we finish the class. Videos of them showing you the tank. This is the tank, these are the injured people. And you look at it and you're saying, like, what is happening? And at some point, Neriah, one of the brothers, lost a part of his pinky. And he keeps shooting, keeps fighting. And then he comes in and he basically looks at everyone behind him. He's starting to see that his ammunition gets low. So he comes in, looks up to the sky, and he says, Hashem, I don't know what you want me to do. Don't do it for me. Don't save my life. Save the 60 kids that you have here. And then the other brother was a medic in the army. So he started attending to the wounded. And he comes in and tells the people who were there, if you can fight, get yourself up and go fight in the front. If you cannot fight, go and help the wounded. If you cannot do this or that, what are you going to sing? Shir Lama'alot. And they start in the battlefield, starting to scream their lungs and say, Shir Lama'alot, Esai Enai La'arim, An Yavo Ezri. Ezri Mim Hashem Aseh Shamayim V'aretz. And they went ahead and they saved all these people's lives. Mm-hmm. And they're living till today. And I met, when we did the Nova retreat, I met many of the ones who were hiding under the tank with them. Mm-hmm. So just to show you the power of prayer and to show you the power of Kavanah, these same 2 kids went ahead probably a few months after, and they did, in Times Square where all Chabad, they do like the gathering, the sit-in. So they went ahead in front of 3,000 people, and they sang the prayer of Shir Ma'alot in front of them with the kippah on their head and it outside or hanging on their.
There's an incredible
So
melody of this Shir HaMalot.
Yes, Shir Ma'alot. I'll play it in a second. But Bezrat Hashem, that's what I want to finish with. Bezrat Hashem, hopefully you got something new out of today. And next week, God willing, I'll be in my honeymoon, so I won't be here. But either we'll discuss if we want to record it or if we want to have someone pass the class for next week. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue. We have much to cover. Bezrat Hashem.